Welcome everyone to another episode of Gov Talks. I'm one of your hosts, Kelsey Mead. February is the month of love, but it is also an important month to honor Black history. Today we'll talk about campus events, student athletes, and the importance of February. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. Some people may wonder why Black History Month is in February, exactly what it is, and how it came to be. Black History Month is an annual celebration that started in the U.S. in 1926, but it wasn't officially recognized until 1976. February was chosen as the month to celebrate, honor, bring awareness to African Americans' Black history, and highlight Black excellence. February was chosen because it coincides with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, who were key figures in the abolitionist movement. And now to Quentin, Deener, and George Hibbard with more on historical figures.
Hello, I'm George Hibbard.
And I'm Quentin Deener.
Welcome to a special edition of Gov Talks, where we will be sharing a variety of videos that cover the topic of Black History Month. Our first video was done by yours truly, where I go off location to cover an infamous location for Black history.
Hello, I'm George Hibbard, and in honor of Black History Month, I visited Memphis, Tennessee to see an infamous landmark for Black history, which is the Lorraine Motel, or better known as the assassination location of Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King's assassination happened on April 4th, 1968, on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. The Lorraine Motel is located on Mulberry Street and has now been converted into the National Civil Rights Museum. Right under King's assassination spot consists of a 1959 Dodge Royale and a 1968 Cadillac. There is also a replica wreath at the spot where Martin Luther King was assassinated. The original wreath was placed on April 8th, 1968, 4 days after King's assassination. The shooter of the assassination was escaped convict James Earl Ray, who assassinated King in honor of writing President George Wallace, who was pro-segregation. It is believed by members of the King family that James Earl Ray had assistance from the FBI to assassinate MLK.
George, did you have a chance to go inside the motel room?
Well, sadly, Quentin, I was not able to go inside because they were renovating it. But will you please tell a little bit of the audience and me about what's inside the hotel?
Well, they usually allow you to walk inside and view his room, and they have this plexiglass that they basically use as a preservation tool. So you can basically experience what he felt right before he.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's powerful. Yeah. Very interesting.
Speaking of Martin Luther King, we asked Jim Spight and Tahj Reavis to go out on campus and put our governor's knowledge of Black historical figures to the test. And here's what they had to say.
My favorite African-American historical figure would be Ernie Davis, because he's a hometown hero where I came from, and he's kind of like just been a big inspiration on not just me, but like my entire hometown in general.
Where's your hometown?
Elmira, New York.
I think Muhammad Ali, because I like his strive to success and how he made a mark on this world.
My favorite Black History Month figure would be Muhammad Ali. As you can see, I'm a huge fan. I love that he was a true human being. We got a chance to see his flaws. We got a chance to see what he was great for and what he did great. But more than anything, it was just super important that we got a chance to see his evolution through his life. And so coming from being Cassius Clay to finding himself and finding a religion that he believed in and changing his name, and he truly stood for people respecting those changes and those him evolving. And so I appreciate that about his character and who he was to us.
On Saturday, Fort Defiance had the annual Black History Month event. Army soldier Delton Wells explains the origin of Black History Month and the value of its existence. Here's what he had to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Delton Wells. I'm a volunteer here, and today I'll be talking about the origins of Black History Month and why it's important. Black History Month is important. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to the 1910s, more specifically, 1915. 1915 was the 50th anniversary of the end of the Civil War. By this time, surviving Civil War veterans from the Union and the Confederacy had been in reconciliation with one another. Now, this is important because it opened the door for the narrative of the Civil War to be changed. By 1915, the Daughters of the Confederacy established textbooks to influence how U.S. history was taught, especially the Civil War and Reconstruction. This includes pushing children's books praising the Ku Klux Klan. You also had historians and the American Historical Association at this time pushing lost cause narratives. This became known as Dunning School of Thought, or simply Dunning School. For 50 years, Dunning School was the standard curriculum for teaching history. And because of that, lots of Black history gets ignored or overlooked or forgotten, especially local history. Even here, from Fort Defiance to Africanatown to Mount Olive, local Black history largely gets overlooked. Enslaved African Americans built Fort Defiance. Once the Union took over this fort, Fort Defiance became a haven for African Americans. Once the war was over, a freedom school was established just down the trail. Once liberated, Blacks found refuge and established themselves near the Dunbar Cave, which is now known as Africanatown. Mount Olive Cemetery is home to over 1,300 African Americans. This includes colored troops and Buffalo Soldiers. In 1915, Carter Woodson dedicated his life to being a historian of Black history and Black culture. Woodson teamed up with other African Americans to form the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. For a decade, Woodson worked relentlessly to ensure that Blacks were included in history and that Blacks took pride in their history. In 1926, Woodson created Negro History Week. It was celebrated in the second week of February in honor of the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln, which is today, and Frederick Douglass, which is on the 14th. During this time, African Americans and their accomplishments would be acknowledged. By the 1930s, predominantly Black areas began celebrating Negro History Week and spreading the word regularly. For the next several decades, Negro History Week would challenge and debunk lost cause narratives and myths of African Americans. In 1970, there was a push to change Negro History Week into Black History Month. And in 1976, President Gerald Ford would become the first president to recognize Black History Month, 50 years after Carter G. Woodson's first Negro History Week. This is the reflection of Black History Month, why we have Black History Month, and why it's important.
Every year, there is a theme that marks the Black History Month celebration. This year's theme is focused on Black people's health and wellness. Here to discuss health and wellness, I have the great privilege of having my roommate, Janvier Bugs, live in the studio with me. She is on the women's indoor and beach volleyball teams, and I really appreciate her coming in today, but first let me talk about her career here at Austin Peay. So she is a sophomore. She plays on the indoor team. She's a setter. She had a breakout game this year at EIU, recording a double-double with digs and assists. She plays on the beach volleyball team as well. She's number 21 on the court and number 1 in my heart. Thank you, Jay, for being in the studio with me today. I really appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Am I really number 1 in your heart?
You are. You are, for sure. I mean, you are my roommate, so come on now. I just want to ask you, how does it feel to be living out your dream playing Division I volleyball?
Honestly, it still feels like a dream. I just had my coach text me this morning and send me a screenshot of the day that I committed, and it's just a weird coincidence that I would have got that text waking up this morning and then being here talking about it. But it's amazing. I put in a lot of hard work back home, and I still can't believe that I'm here.
Being a female athlete in this world, we are definitely in the minority. How does that feel for you?
It definitely doesn't feel good, especially coming from a school where football is the main sport. I think that the program is doing a good job of allocating more funds to the women's sports and getting more promotion towards the women at Austin Peay, so I think that's good, and I hope to be a part of that as well.
For sure. I definitely agree with you on that, because it is hard to be a women athlete in this world. You know, like, there's not big professional women leagues. There's not a lot of funding for women's sports other than women's basketball at the college level.
Right.
But how do you use your platform to inspire younger athletes like that would follow in your footsteps?
I think one of the best ways going about that is to go back home, like go back to my roots. I often visit my old club that I came from, and I just talk to the girls there, and I try to let them know that, you know, I came from a recruiting time where COVID was at its height, and it was really, really hard for me to get to this place. So since their circumstances are a little better, they can definitely do it if I could. It's nice to see a younger athlete there in the gym with them. So I think they look up to me for that.
Yeah, for sure. And since you mentioned COVID, you know, last year was definitely a hard year for everybody, not just sports-wise, but I know you were in the dorms last year. It was your freshman year, and it was the height of COVID, like you said.
Yeah.
It wasn't just your recruiting that got messed up. It was your whole freshman year of college, like that experience. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So my life in the dorm last year was pretty isolated. I was quarantined twice. Social life on campus really wasn't a thing. As soon as this year started, I just kept saying socially I'm a freshman, even though I'm a sophomore. I have a year under my belt, but it didn't feel like it. So as soon as Austin Peay started putting on the freshman events, like in the intramural field and stuff, I was like, I need to go to this because I feel like a freshman, like I don't know anyone. So I wanted to take advantage of that and just talk to more people, talk to more athletes, people in my class. Last year was tough. There wasn't much to hold on to except volleyball, and I'm glad I had volleyball during that time. Otherwise, I probably would have been feeling a little lost.
Yeah. And speaking about Black people's mental health and wellness, you know, that is the theme of this Black History Month. Can you speak on that a little bit? I mean, last year obviously was very tough mentally and physically, I'm sure. Like, you weren't having that community of other freshman athletes. Literally all you had was your team. Like, it wasn't like you had classes, a lot of in-person classes, you know, because COVID. So how did you work through that mentally?
I would say that as soon as I went home for the summer, it was like a reset. So it was pretty isolating. Last year, my spring semester, I had all online classes. All I had to do was go to weights and go to practice. So there wasn't much to do. So as soon as I went home, I cleared my mind and I set out goals as to what I wanted to achieve for this year. And of course, those goals are athletic and academic, but I wanted to socially be more involved, and I wanted to do things like this with you. Like, this is such a great opportunity, and I wanted our team to be more involved in this month as well. I just wanted to make sure that everyone felt comfortable celebrating it, even if you aren't Black, you know, get other stories and perspectives out. So I'm really grateful that you have me here telling my story.
I'm glad to have you in the studio, and I think it's a great way for you to be able to share and like use your platform and like this platform that I have as well in order to share your story, share your culture. And I know you touched a little bit about how you talked about it with our team, and I know it was very inspiring for me, especially, you know, to learn more about like your culture, like where you come from. Can you just touch on how it felt to be able to present the videos and the things that you did with just the volleyball team?
Yeah, so I felt like we didn't do much as a team for Black History Month last year, so I just wanted to take it under my wing and make it the most comfortable and fun experience it can be, without just shoving a bunch of information down everyone's throats, because I feel like when it gets to that point, people are kind of standoffish and they don't really know where to start. So I just wanted to give the resources. Like, I gave a list of Clarksville Black businesses and Nashville Black businesses. I know a lot of the girls on our team go downtown, so they can always visit there. But the videos were basically art-based, and I thought it was really nice to show the culture to the whole team.
All right, my last question for you is, if you could write a letter to your younger self, what would you say?
I would tell my younger self to not worry about the time that I didn't have, and to take the time that I do have and make the best of it. I think with COVID especially, there were times where I felt like I could have used those weeks to train, and I could have been in the gym at this time, or if I would have started volleyball younger, I could be better right now. And you know, you can't get that time back. So just taking advantage of what I had and the resources I had, I wish I would have believed in that more then. But I'm still really proud of myself for getting to the place I am, but that's what I probably tell myself.
I love it. Very powerful story, very inspiring to get to know you, get to live with you, and get to play with you every single day. Thank you again for being here. I do really appreciate it. And I've loved getting to chat with you and just learn more about your story. We'll be back with more on Leading Through Black Excellence with Mr. Harold Wallace III, a local legend, Wilma Rudolph, and our grad students documentary premiere at the Roxy. More Gov Talks coming up right after this break.
Step 1. Just breathe. Silence the demons and believe. Step 2. Have this spoken. Never decide anything permanent in a single moment. Step 3. Know this for a fact. You are loved, no matter what you think you lack. Step 4. Know that tomorrow there's always a chance to fade your sorrow. Step 5. If you believe in anything, love yourself. You're everything. Just breathe.
Testing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Greetings. My name is David Von Palco, and I'm known as Doc V. I'm a professor in the Department of Communication, and I would like to tell you about Coal Day. It'll take place Saturday, February 19th from 9 until 4. We invite you to join us for breakfast, lunch, or snacks, and when you do, it will give you a chance to see what it's like to be a communication major for the day.
The vibe of a calm student is all in what you make it, honestly, because it's so creative.
I'm so honored to be able to represent the student body at such a historically significant event.
Engage to where you're able to move around with the equipment, regardless of what backgrounds that we come from. It's a very inclusive environment.
There'll be activities and workshops for prospective students, parents, and teachers. Additionally, students can choose to participate in a research competition with the chance to win a $1,000 scholarship.
As comm majors, we're constantly looking at the way that communication and media impacts our daily lives, thoughts, opinions, and actions. This project will allow you to think critically about how this affects our choices, as well as give you hands-on media experience.
Wow, what a great interview.
It definitely was. Welcome back, Govs.
Now, let's cover a Black Clarksville icon. That's right. I'm talking about local hometown hero, Wilma Rudolph. Here is Kayla Benson to do just that.
Wilma Rudolph is the first African-American woman to win 3 gold Olympic medals and is featured in the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame. According to WilmaRudolph.com and ESPN, she was born prematurely in St. Bethlehem, just northeast of Clarksville, Tennessee, amongst her 21 other siblings. The majority of her childhood was in sickness, with things such as polio, whooping cough, measles, chickenpox, scarlet fever, and double pneumonia. These caused her to have a brace on her leg at the age of 6. Doctors believed she would never walk again. However, she practiced every day under the care of her mother and siblings and was able to walk again by 9. She took up basketball at age 11 and was eventually recruited as a sprinter for Tennessee State University due to her popularity as a fast runner. As her fame grew, she established the Wilma Rudolph Foundation, which was used to help amateur athletics. She is greatly remembered as one of the fastest women in track and is honored in many ways here in Clarksville.
Austin Peay students, dancer Justin Tinker, and actor Lucas Blair gave a short preview of an upcoming performance for Juneteenth at Fort Defiance. They interpret a letter from 1863 by Lewis Douglas, the son of Frederick Douglass.
Lewis fought for one of our official African-American units during the Civil War. Paul Swartz was more on the event.
Hello, I'm Paul Schuhart, and I'm covering the annual Black History event here at Fort Defiance.
Over the last few years, there have been groups who have been influencing the way history is taught in schools. Since the summer of 2021, those efforts have ramped up. Tennessee is one of the states that have passed laws prohibiting teaching history in a way that makes children feel, or people feel, discomfort.
Our history is not pretty sometimes. You don't just accept history, you discover history. You put history to the test.
Our students from Austin Peay will interpret a letter written in 1863 by the son of Frederick Douglass, Lewis.
My dear Millie, I've been in 2 fights and am unhurt. I'm about to go on another leap tonight. Our men fought well on both occasions. The last was desperate. We charged that terrible battery on Morris Island known as Fort Wagner and were repulsed with the loss of 3 killed and wounded. I escaped unhurt from the mist. That perfect hail of shot and shell. It was terrible.
Ebony Amos, she's the choreographer and artistic director of it. She just asked us one day if, hey, I'm doing something and I need you two to be a part of it. It was Frederick Douglass' son. I did not know that before. So like looking at the text and like taking things out and feeling the energy in the room, that was unfathomable.
Yes, that was our main focus, was trying to grab what he was saying in the text, form it into movement.
My dear girl, I hope again to see you. Now I shall bid you farewell.
Like the energy in the room really, it pushes you. It definitely does so.
Another important figure that we have here on campus is Mr. Harold Wallace III. He plays a critical role in serving African American students on Austin Peay's campus. He is the director of the Wilbur N. Daniel African American Cultural Center and leads the Achievers and Scholars Mentoring Program for Black male students.
Kito, Aruh, and Jeremy Rivera-Sanchez have more on Mr. Wallace and the role of the center.
My name is Harold Wallace III, and I am the director of the Wilbur N. Daniel African American Cultural Center. I do my best to make sure that, one, it's always open for the students. Two, I do my best to kind of create a home away from home environment here on campus, but mainly I'm in charge of programming to educate the campus about African American culture while making sure that our students that are African American descent have a place on campus. For me, I think it's important to have a space like this on a predominantly white institution because it's important for students to have that place where they can see people that look like them. But most importantly, it's really big to make sure that we are doing our part to educate those majority students to make sure that they leave the institution better than they came, or more culturally competent than they came. And so I think it's important to always have spaces like this that expose students to different cultures. Black History Month for me is one of those things where I'm super happy to be able to have that time frame where the United States as a whole does their very best to celebrate. But me, I think that there is, of course, it's 1 month. I would love for Black history to simply be a part of American history, and us to do a better job of being able to learn about these different things throughout the whole year. But as of now, I'm super happy to be able to have this month where I truly get the respect that we deserve. But me, I think that it should be more ingrained in regular American history because we definitely played a huge role in that.
Thank you, Kito and Jeremy, for that wonderful information. APSU legend Stephen Alexander will be premiering his graduate thesis documentary at the Roxy Regional Theater. The documentary is about colorism. Paul Schuhart reporting on the premiere.
Hello, my name is Paul Schuhart and I went to the Roxy Regional Theater. Check out the upcoming premiere of A Palette of Shades. Written, produced, and directed by Austin Peay's very own Chris Alexander. Let's check out the trailer for A Palette of Shades.
I realized I was Black probably around the age of 6.
From roughly 4 to 5.
I was being judged by something I had no control of.
I would probably say 2 or 3 years old.
That difference in treatment is still around today.
This repetitive experience of colorism has altered the way we as a nation see value in one another.
It was heavily said that light skin was pretty.
I was stunned because that was a new experience.
I would try to rub the color off my skin.
You understood right up front who you were. People didn't regard you on equal grounds.
How can we help the next generation in order to make sure history doesn't repeat itself?
You want to be seen as who you are and not who the world says that you may be.
The film will premiere February 20th at 4 p.m. at the Roxy Regional Theater. Admissions will be $15 and a Q&A will be hosted after the film.
So Quentin, yeah, you gave some assistance on this film, right?
Yeah, Paul and I helped film some of the interviews.
Wow, that's great. I'm very proud of you two.
Thank you, man.
Well, that's all the time we have for Gov Talks. Thank you for joining us.